23 Sinister Tales Exposed, spine-chilling horrors to haunt your sleepless nights in the rain. Laura had always thought of Millstone as a quiet, unassuming suburban paradise. But beneath its polished surface lay a darkness, waiting for the right moment to strike. It was late, and the diner where she worked was eerily empty, the only sound being the unsettling howl of the wind outside. She gathered her things, her heart racing not just from fatigue, but from whispers of a deadly string of disappearances that had wrapped around her town like a sinister fog. Each new night brought with it a creeping terror that clawed at her mind. As she trudged home through the sheets of rain, a flicker of lightning illuminated the street, the shadows stretching in unsettling ways. But nothing prepared her for the sight that awaited her upon her return. The front window was fogged over, and as she wiped away a patch, her breath caught in her throat. Eerie messages slashed into the glass formed a chilling pattern. "I'm watching you." They seemed to leer back at her. Goosebumps prickled her skin. She looked around, her instincts screaming that something was terribly wrong. What kind of monster wrote such things? Determined to find answers, Laura knocked on Mr. Jacob's door. The elderly man, once a steadfast figure in her life, now sent unsettling shivers down her spine. He graciously invited her in, but as she explained her fears, she watched his smile twitch like a marionette's string pulled too hard. "You're just overreacting, Laura," he assured her, dismissing her panic with a gentle pat on the shoulder that felt too soft. Somehow, it only deepened her dread. It was the quiet reassurance that always signaled danger. As the storm intensified, Emily's phone buzzed with frantic texts from an unknown number. Laura could feel every word thudding like a drum against her heart. How did this stranger know where Emily was? "I can see you right now," the message read. She felt the walls around her close in, the once safe world of Millstone morphing into a living nightmare. Compelled by a primal urge, she rushed home to protect Emily, a mother's fury and fear igniting within her. When she burst through the door, chaos greeted her: overturned furniture, shattered family photos, and silence so heavy it clawed at her throat. A cold sweat broke out on her forehead, her heart racing loud enough to drown out the raging storm outside. Desperately, she reached for her phone only to feel the cold emptiness of impending doom pressing down on her. A flashlight beam flickered through the house, a fleeting hope in the encroaching darkness. She could sense a foreign presence, an unseen predator lurking just beyond her grasp. Just as she fumbled for help, her phone buzzed again. This time it was a simple line. "I'm closer than you think." Time fractured around her as she realized that this was no ordinary predator. The sane, comforting community she had trusted was suffocating her. The realization struck her like a fist. Mr. Jacobs, that soothing smile, was a mask over something far more monstrous. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Panic coursed through her veins, tightening her throat. Each second felt like an eternity as the abyss of fear beckoned her deeper. She needed to find Emily before it was too late, before the safety she thought she had was swallowed whole. On that rain-soaked night, with lightning splitting the skies, she couldn't shake the question rattling around in her mind: how well can we truly know the people we trust? The darkness swallowed her home, shadows creeping along the walls like talons eager to snatch her away. Laura's breath came hard and fast as she pivoted, scanning the room for any sign of Emily. "Emily!" Her voice shattered the eerie silence, echoing back with a haunting emptiness. She took a tentative step into the chaos. Every creak of the floorboards made her pulse race. The beam of the flashlight flickered, revealing glimpses of the room: a overturned chair, a broken lamp, scraps of fabric that might have been part of Emily's favorite dress. Panic surged, tightening its grip around her heart. She couldn't breathe. "Emily! Please answer me?" Her voice cracked, vulnerability spilling into the air, mingling with the stench of fear. "Nothing. A cold chill snaked up her spine, a whisper of dread that something was lurking just beyond sight. She dashed to the kitchen, her stomach tightening with every step. Had Emily been taken? It was one thing to fear a predator outside. It was another to suspect that it was someone she knew. She snatched the house phone from its cradle, her fingers trembling as she dialed the police. But the line went dead, a mocking silence ringing in her ears. She felt the walls close in, like a vice squeezing the air from her lungs. A loud crash resonated from somewhere deeper in the house. Laura's heart leaped into her throat. "Emily!" She screamed again, instinct urging her forward. Adrenaline fueled her as she sprinted toward the origin of the sound, the flashlight trembling in her grip. As she reached the hallway, a sudden blast of wind swept through an open window, extinguishing her light. Darkness engulfed her, and the howl of the storm outside melded with the pounding of her fear-driven heartbeat. Stumbling, she grabbed the edges of the wall, using it for guidance. "What is happening?" she thought, panic clawing at her sanity. The absence of Emily threatened to crush her. When she found the living room again, the moonlight spilled through the shattered glass, tracing jagged lines across the floor. Her mind raced with thoughts of who could do this, who would want to harm her family. Get out while you still can." The voice was a soft, mocking whisper that grazed her ear. Laura spun around, dread crashing over her like a wave. No one was there. Her fingers shook, obeying her frantic thoughts to check the back door. She needed to escape this home that had become a lion's den. As she reached the door, a figure loomed in the corner of her vision, Mr. Jacobs. His face, always gentle, now distorted with a twisted grin. "I told you to be careful, Laura." His voice was cold, sending icy fingers down her spine. "You're not safe here." Heart racing, she dashed past him, feeling the weight of years of trust shatter in a blink. She lunged for the door. A surge of adrenaline pushed her forward, but before she could grasp the handle, his hand shot out, gripping her wrists like iron. "Where do you think you're going?" Panic erupted in her chest. "Let go of me." But he only tightened his grip, the slightest trace of malice glimmering in his eyes. "You should come back inside, Laura. It's not safe out here." With a desperate twist, she pulled away, her mind screaming for escape, for Emily. She could not let fear win. As she darted towards the open window, a flash of lightning broke the night sky apart, illuminating the room in stark white and casting elongated shadows. But it wasn't just the house that trembled. A figure stood there, beyond the rain-soaked glass. Was it Emily? "Don't go!" cried Mr. Jacobs. He lunged for her just as she made a break for it, the shadows around them shifting maliciously. Laura's heart thundered as she slipped out into the storm, the rain hammering down like a heartbeat against her skin. But the figure in the storm stood unmoving, a solitary silhouette. Questions clawed at her mind. Was that truly Emily? And then the phone buzzed again, a new text, another message she couldn't ignore. "You've made a dangerous choice." Her blood ran cold. What had she set in motion? Laura stumbled backward, the storm swirling around her like a predator waiting to strike. As she hesitated, illuminated by a flash of lightning, she recognized the figure distinctly. She had to make a decision. Rushing toward the familiar shape or fleeing into the storm, not knowing what awaited her, could she trust her eyes? With her pulse roaring in her ears, she took a faltering step forward. The wind howled around Laura as she stood frozen, staring at the drenched figure. Her vision pulsated with every beat of her heart. Was it truly Emily, or just a ghostly mirage conjured by her terrified mind? As the rain soaked through her clothes, the pit of dread deepened in her stomach. "Emily!" she shouted again, her voice getting lost in the storm as fury. Yet the figure remained still, almost too still, as if waiting for her to close the distance. A rush of doubt swept through her, as heavy as the rain. What if it was a trap? What if she was running straight into danger? She had seen how Mr. Jacobs transformed from trusted neighbor to something sinister. Could this shadowy silhouette be another cruel trick? Uncertainty gnawed at her, but she forced herself to move. One careful step turned into a jog, then a sprint through the sheets of rain that pelted her skin like sharp needles. "Mom!" The scream cut through the noise, raw and desperate. It was unmistakably Emily's voice. Each syllable twisted in Laura's gut, pulling her forward even as other instincts screamed for her to run. She charged through the rain, heart racing, hoping that this time, the wind wouldn't swallow the sound before it reached her. As she got closer, she noticed the figure's hair, a familiar, tangled mess of curls. Laura's breath caught. "Emily! Is it really you?" "Mom!" Emily cried, her voice choked by despair. She took a shaky step forward, her small frame shivering in the tumultuous night. But when Laura reached for her, the world erupted in chaos. A sudden flash of lightning illuminated not just Emily, but a twisted tableau behind her. Figures lurked in the shadows, standing as still as statues, their eyes glimmering with malice. They were all faces she recognized, neighbors, friends, all harboring a darkness so profound that it consumed the very air around her. A strangled gasp escaped Laura's lips, halting her advance. The shadows flickered, revealing more details: a glint of knives, blood-stained clothes, faces twisted in expressions of hunger. They sought something, and Laura knew deep down that the lure was her. "Come closer," one of the shadowy figures whispered, its voice dripping with temptation. "No!" Laura screamed, instinctively backing away, her mind racing. "Stay back!" In a moment of sheer fear, she pivoted, ready to flee back into the storm, but the wind snapped and howled as if in anger, striking her like a physical force. "Mom, help me!" Emily's voice was now frail, breaking her heart. The barrier between safety and horror began to collapse. Laura felt that their hunger was palpable, a living thing pulling her towards them like gravity. Each face had once been a soothing balm in her life, now they radiated menace. Panic engulfed her as she spun back toward the silhouette of her daughter, desperate to keep the distance between them and the encroaching darkness. She didn't just feel the terror of the storm. She felt the evil seeping from those forms creeping toward her daughter, teasing the air between them. "Emily! Run!" Laura's voice was wild, frantic, yet the storm roared louder, drowning her out. Moments stretched to infinity, as fear paved a path more tangible than the muddy ground beneath her feet. Then she felt it, a strange warmth blossom behind her, wrapping itself around her abdomen like a vice. A hand, greasy and cold, gripped her waist. "Laura, it's time to join us," she gasped, feeling as though the darkness itself was breathing down her neck. Instinct kicked in. With a primal scream, she lunged toward Emily, yet the night seemed to thicken like sludge. "Mom!" Emily's eyes widened, a mirror of her own terror. Hopefully, she still had time to break free before the shadows pulled her under. But now, the night was alive, and the figures were closing in, laughter echoing in the gale's howl. "Mom! Please!" Her heart side split in two. One side drew her to safety, the other to the doom creeping behind, fangs bared and poised to strike. What was she supposed to choose? Yet, as she felt herself being pulled into the dark, she barely made a choice before. Everything dissolved into a fury of cold, relentless darkness. Where would she end up? And would Emily still be there when it all faded away? In the suffocating darkness, Laura felt herself tumbling through a void. The world around her was stripped away like the rain from her skin, leaving only a swirling, insatiable blackness. She gasped, but the air was thick and stale, wrapping around her like a shroud. The chilling sensation of what had gripped her waist vanished, but the dread remained, crawling beneath her skin. "Emily," Laura whispered, her voice swallowed by the abyss. Panic twisted her stomach. Had she lost her daughter for good? Then a glimmer pierced the gloom, a faint flicker, like a dying candle. Laura grasped for it, yearning for warmth and safety. The light flickered again, now accompanied by a distant murmur, faint and sorrowful. With each inch she moved toward it, the whispers sharpened into cries, weaving together a cacophony of despair. She stumbled into the light, and reality slammed back into focus. Around her was a place unlike any she had ever known. The ground was slick and black, gasping like a living creature. Shadows writhed, their forms grotesquely distorted, echoing the laughter that had haunted her moments ago. A ghostly fog, charged with malevolence, swirled ominously, carrying with it the scent of decay. "Mom!" Emily's voice rang out again, clearer now, filled with as much hope as terror. Laura's heart leaped, but the darkness echoed in mockery. She spun, frantic to find her daughter in the shifting shadows. "Where are you?" The words fell from her lips in a choked gasp. Each syllable seemed to fill the void, intensifying the chaos around her. Suddenly, a figure erupted from the fog. At first, Laura's heart rushed with relief, but her breath froze. It was Emily, standing among the shadows, but her eyes, they weren't the bright blue that used to comfort Laura. They were dark, bottomless pits that reflected only hunger and despair. "Mom?" The question dripped with something else, an undercurrent of something sinister lurking behind her daughter's voice. "Emily! Run!" Laura shouted, adrenaline surging. She lunged, but the ground beneath her feet twisted like a living force, pulling her down, holding her back. "Stay with us, Laura," the echoing voices purred, sibilant whispers dripping with promise. "She is safe here. Join us forever." "No!" Laura screamed, panic mounting as she fought against the darkness, clawing her way toward the figure of her daughter. But even as she battled the shadows, they tightened their grip, clawing at her mind, sowing seeds of doubt. "Mom, it's okay. They can help us." Emily's voice shifted, almost soothing, yet the light inside it faded. "You're tired, just let go." Tired? The darkness was suffocating, but Laura felt the fire of determination flare in her chest. "Emily, don't listen. This is a trick." She flailed against the weight of despair, pulling Emily close, desperate for her daughter to break free from whatever had hold of her. But the shadows deepened with each word, swirling into a malevolent storm. Laura's heart raced. She had to get Emily out before this darkness consumed them both. "Shut your eyes, baby. I'll find a way." But Emily hesitated, her small frame trembling, caught between the light of her mother's love and the suffocating grasp of the shadows. The storm roared outside, wild and frenzied, drowning the cries. In that moment, everything was a blur of faces twisted in agony, the roar of the wind bellowing like 1,000 lost souls. And just as hope threatened to slip away, the grip of darkness twisted and pulled one last time, and Laura felt herself being yanked in 2 directions at once. Then silence fell like a blade, thick and heavy, severing all connection. What had happened? And in that crushing stillness, could she find a path back to Emily? The echoes of laughter returned, sharper and crueler than before. The darkness pulsed with life, and Laura realized it wasn't just the storm battering against her resolve. It was something else, something waiting to pounce, and she had just awakened it. The silence felt palpable, like a thick blanket pressing down on Laura's chest. She stood, immobilized, panic coursing through her veins. Where was Emily? The blaring absence of her daughter struck deeper than any wound. The shadows loomed closer, a swirling mass of despair threatening to consume her. "Emily!" She called again, voice cracking against the stillness. The darkness around her responded, rippling like a dark sea eager to devour. The faint flicker of hope had all but vanished, leaving behind a cold, gripping dread. Suddenly, a cold gust swept through, scattering the fog and revealing fleeting glimpses of twisted faces, eyes wide with torment and mouths silently screaming. They were trying to warn her? Or lure her deeper into this nightmare? Either way, she couldn't stand still any longer. The clenching shadows would soon reclaim her if she didn't move. Clutching her hands tight into fists, Laura forced herself to step forward. Each movement felt heavy, the ground slick with an unsettling ooze that grabbed at her shoes, like 1,000 hands pulling her back. She stumbled but pressed on, driven by a raw urgency to find her daughter. As she moved, the whispers morphed into distinct words, cruel and mocking. "You'll never escape. She belongs to us." The voices taunted, wrapped in laughter that clawed at her thoughts. Each syllable twisted, tethering her closer to despair, but she pressed on, growing more frantic. "Emily!" She cried again, a shrill note of desperation escaping her lips as she lunged forward into the haze. It was then she saw it a flicker, a dim glow bursting forth from the muck, illuminating a path. It was so faint yet so enticing. But behind that glow, shadows danced, beckoning to her, promising secrets deeper than any mother should dare to uncover. "Mom," the familiar voice emerged, echoing like a dream. The glow pulsed rhythmically, like a heartbeat, steering her toward it. Laura's heart soared, hope ignited. She stumbled forward, flushing away her fear. "Emily!" she shouted, lunging toward that precious light, but as she neared, the figures in the darkness shifted. Emily's face emerged, but it was contorted. Her eyes, those haunting black voids, darkened further. Though she stood before Laura, the flickering light illuminated the growing distance between them. "I don't want to be here. I'm scared." Her daughter's voice trembled, weaving through the air like a fragile thread. Every word hit Laura like a piercing knife. "Fight it, baby. Come to me," Laura urged, but the shadows whipped mercilessly around them, twisted forms extending toward Emily, smothering her in sickly embraces. Suddenly, new whispers swelled, resonating with an intoxicating charm. "You've been chosen. Join us, little one. All your dreams will come true." The voices dripped with seductive promises, but Laura's heart shrank. They were luring her child deeper into this malevolence. Terror gripped her. "Emily, don't listen. You're stronger than this." Laura's voice rose above the cacophony, her heart pounding as she grasped at the dreamlike image of her daughter. But as she spoke, Emily began to tremble. "Mom, I can't." The glow flickered, drowning under the clutches of the shadows. With each blink, Emily recoiled, pulled further from her. Laura felt the world around her twist and blur, as though the very fabric of reality was unraveling. "Emily!" she screamed, stretching her arms toward her daughter, desperation fueling her every attempt to grasp the light that seemed just within reach. The whip of shadow cracked like a whip over the ground, splitting it open. A chasm appeared, gaping wide, an invitation or a trap? Laura's heart raced as sheer panic surged through her, and the darkness beckoned with promises that clawed at her sanity. Then, without warning, the shadows released a deafening roar, echoing the desolation of countless lost souls. The ground heaved, and tomorrow began to collapse in on itself. The pull of the pit was relentless, and as it yawned, drawing everything closer, the distant figure of her daughter began to dissolve into the fog. "Mom!" The cry pierced through, electrifying her. What would she choose, fate or fight? And in that storm of uncertainty, another fear took shape, a whisper that caught her breath. You could join her if you let go. Laura's heart raced, the abyss expanding before her as voices of temptation danced dangerously close. Could she withstand this sinister pull long enough to rescue her child? What awaited her in the depths below, if she chose this path? The chasm roared, a living void that beckoned with dark promises. Laura felt the edges of her sanity fray, each second stretching into eternity, as the echoes of Emily's voice faded into the abyss behind her. She could not lose her. Not now. "Emily!" she shouted again, launching herself forward, her feet slipping in the mire. It held her like a merciless grip, trying to suck her in, but she pushed against it, adrenaline coursing through her veins like fire. "Mom! Help me!" Emily's voice rose again, so close yet so far. Laura's heart pounded as she fought the primal urge to flee. The whispers echoed through her mind, "Join us, stay, be free." The cloud of shadows pulsed with a life of its own, the twisted faces morphed into familiar shapes, people she once knew, their expressions distorted in agony. Grotesque memories danced before her, friends she had lost, loved ones she had failed to save. They reached for her with outstretched hands. "Don't go, we need you, stop it!" she screamed, shaking her head to dispel the visions. Her mind was a battlefield, each memory pulling her further from Emily. But she couldn't give in. She zoned in on her daughter's receding light, its pulsing glow amid the inky blackness a lifeline in this swirling chaos. "Emily, I'm coming!" Laura stumbled, clawing her way closer, but each step felt like wading through concrete. The shadows clawed at her clothes, snaring her waist and legs, chilling her to the bone. They whispered lies, spreading doubts that wrapped around her heart like cold chains. A mother's love shouldn't draw her deeper into hell. Laura caught sight of Emily again. Her daughter was struggling against the dark tendrils that entwined her legs, dragging her down. The beautiful child with the bright blue dress now appeared cloaked in darkness, those void-like eyes wide, pleading for someone to save her from the dark seduction. "Stay strong, Emily. Just hold on." Each word was a lifeline thrown across the growing chasm. But the darkness hissed, "She can't. Will you let her suffer forever?" "Never." Laura's voice splintered as she shouted defiantly. With a surge of raw strength, she lunged forward, grabbing the edge of the chasm, pulling with everything inside her. The shadows shrieked, twisting violently as the ground began to shake. The whispers intensified, now a cacophony of madness. "Join us. Release her. Become one of us." They swept around her, promising her peace, freedom from the relentless fear. "Emily!" Desperation fueled her. She dug her fingers into the wet earth, clawing her way toward the light. The glow flickered like a flickering candle in the wind, fragile yet defiant. Just a little further. Suddenly, a darkness swept over her, an icy gust that gripped her throat, threatening to squeeze the breath from her lungs. Shadows lunged at her, stretching their clawed hands toward her face, choking her with their presence. "Let her go!" she gasped, a mixture of rage and terror bubbling in her chest. The darkness pulsed violently, but her love for Emily ignited a flame of resolve. "Mom, I can't hold on. Please!" Emily's voice cracked, filled with fear and pain. "Don't you dare give up!" Laura screamed, her voice breaking through the shadows. In a rush of clarity, she reached down into the pit of her heart, channeling every ounce of love she had ever felt for her daughter. The ground trembled as the shadows writhed in pain, and with a final, triumphant growl, Laura pulled herself over the lip of the chasm. And then she saw a hand reaching for her, fragile but there. "Emily!" But as their fingers brushed, a terrible realization struck. The shadows began to fragment around her, buzzing with fury. Something sinister laughed in the depths of the chasm, its chilling voice cutting through her heart. "You will pay for your defiance." Just as she felt the barrier of light wash over them, reality twisted again. Everything went still, the light flickering for a heartbeat. What had she unleashed? And then, the cries and the whispers stopped, leaving only the echo of her own breath as the world turned dark around her for the second time. What had she become in their eyes? Would Emily still be there when the darkness lifted? Uncertainty gnawed at her, as heavier shadows wrapped tighter than ever before. Could they escape what lurked below? Or was this only the beginning of a darker fate? The darkness felt alive, whispering secrets that clawed at Laura's sanity. She had crossed the threshold into something unnameable, as if the very essence of despair had wrapped around her like a suffocating shroud. Her heart raced, confusion spiraling within her. She could barely remember the last light shimmering around her, flickering like a dying star. "Emily?" she murmured, her voice weak and trembling. The silence that answered felt like a weight, heavy in the air. Panic coursed through her veins. What if she had lost her forever? Suddenly, a flicker ignited in the fringes of her vision, a glimmer not of light, but of movement. Shadows were shifting, folding into grotesque shapes just out of reach. She squinted into the darkness, her breath shallow and rapid. The once familiar forms of her friends loomed again, their faces twisted into grim reflections of their former selves. "Laura, save us, free us," they moaned, their voices blending into a chorus of sorrow that filled her head. She staggered back as the air thickened, each utterance a shackle that pulled her toward the edge of madness. "Get away!" she screamed, clutching her temples, trying to block out the cacophony. But the shadows only grew bolder, swirling around her like a cyclone of memories and regrets, bringing with them her failures. Their eyes brightened with a haunting familiarity, dark depths crawling with torment, each one a reflection of a life she had tried so hard to forget. Tears streamed down her face as she stumbled, the heaviness of her burdens amplifying the weight of the shadows. But in the center of her despair lay the one brightness she held on to, Emily's fragile voice. "Mom!" It floated through the void, pulling her deeper, spurring her to fight against the tide of despair. "Hold on, Emily!" she cried, a fierce determination igniting in her chest. She could not let these phantoms seal her daughter's fate. She would tear through the darkness if it took every last bit of strength. With a defiant yell, she pushed forward, forcing her way through the oppressive mist. But it clawed at her, relentless tendrils reaching for her throat, pulling her into the swirling chaos. "Join us!" The shadows howled, their breath icy against her skin. "You know you want to, peace awaits you know!" With a primal scream, she slashed through the darkness, her hands tearing at the shadowy depths, desperate to find Emily. A burst of clarity struck her. Love could cut through anything, she just needed to channel it. Her heart surged with unyielding force, pushing her to fight through the darkness, fight for her child. The shadows faltered, shimmering as if unsure of their grip. For a heartbeat, the chaos receded just enough to reveal paths of light weaving through the darkness. Hope flooded her, bright and blinding. "Emily!" she shouted again, her voice raw but fierce. "Follow the light!" But then, a chilling laughter erupted from within the shadows, deep and guttural. "You think love conquers all? You will uncover true horrors where love cannot tread." A wave of despair crashed upon her, and she felt herself slipping. The shadows tightened, an unbearable weight dragging her back toward the chasm. Each memory twisted beneath their grasp, her spirit buckling beneath their pressure. And then she saw Emily again, the little girl, now flickering like a signal in the dark, her face still painted with fear. "Mom, please!" The chasm rumbled beneath them, a warning about what lay ahead. Laura could feel the ground shaking, the air reverberating with an unsettling energy. "Emily, I'm coming!" But as she lunged forward, the shadows reared up, massing into a wall of darkness blocking her path. A split-second realization struck her. What if the only way to save her daughter was to confront the horrors within? What if she was the key to breaking this twisted cycle? The shadows drew closer, an insistent whisper clawing at her mind. "Join us, you may lose her, but find yourself." Was there truth in it? Was the price too high? Terror clenched her heart as she faced the roiling darkness. There was no way to tell if this was the end or merely a pivotal moment before the beginning of something worse. What awaited them in the suffocating darkness ahead? Would she be brave enough to sacrifice it all? The ground beneath them pulsed in time with her racing heart, and she hesitated as the void stretched before her, its depths calling her name. What if she had to let go? Laura's breath grew ragged, each pulse of fear slowing her certainty. The shadows whispered sweet nothingness, promising solace and surrender. Despair wrapped around her like a noose, squeezing tighter with each passing moment. She could feel the darkness drowning her hopes, each flicker of light in her mind dimming. "Emily!" she cried, the name ripping from her throat, desperate. The shadows rippled in response, mocking her. What if she's already gone? The fear settled in her gut like lead, heavy and cold. "Mom!" Emily's voice was a fragile thread in the storm of despair. Help in her heart, a fire flickered, a fierce resolve that kindled against the encroaching darkness. She wasn't going to let this malevolent force take her away. It had already claimed too much. Her friends' faces blended into a grotesque collage of sorrow and longing, their eyes begging for her to remember, to assist them in their own hauntings. Drawing forth the ocean of love she bore for her daughter, Laura shouted into the void, "I won't let you take me. I'm not afraid of you." She plunged forward again, fighting against the shadows that clawed at her. As she moved, each step seemed to resonate throughout the gloom, pulsing through the ground, amplifying the darkness. The air thickened, full of whispers, broken promises, and shattered dreams colliding around her like shards of glass. The shadows rushed close, their cold fingers grazing her skin, chilling her to the bone. She pushed past the moment's agony, focusing only on Emily. If the darkness hated her, it could not have her heart. "Follow the light," her voice broke the stillness, steadying her resolve. "I will find you, my love!" All at once, the shadows recoiled, as if stung by her fierce declaration. They hissed and snapped, the weight of their malice palpable. But in their response, she discerned a faint shimmer, one brighter than the rest, moving through the black like a beacon. "Mom!" It was louder now, clear and resonant. The vision of Emily swirled beyond the grasp of the shadows, her tiny frame flickering with an otherworldly glow. But every step Laura took toward her felt like wading through molasses, the darkness eager to slow her down. With a cry of defiance, she surged forward, fists clenched. No more games! I will save my daughter! The ground beneath her shuddered, a tremor that rattled the bones of the abyss. It roared back, a cacophony of anguished voices clawing at her confidence. You don't belong here, Laura, leave her to her fate. Don't you dare! I will not give up! The shadows recoiled slightly, surprised by her ferocity. But then, like a tide, they surged back, stronger, angrier. A surge of wind swept around her, carrying the chill of despair, threatening to snatch her resolve away. But in that howling maelstrom, she felt it again, the light, the voice. Mom, please! Emily's figure flickered, desperation radiating from her. Laura's heart pounded as she realized she had to make a choice. The path to Emily led straight through the darkness. Was she ready to face whatever horror lurked within her own fears, her own regrets? The shadows danced closer, their laughter a sinister harmony around her. Join us, Laura, lose yourself, and find peace. No! She screamed. I refuse. She was teetering on the edge of despair and hope. Would she fall deeper into the void? Or ascend to a truth that could shatter this darkness? With a deep breath, she prepared herself to leap into the depths, knowing that whatever awaited could change everything if only she dared to embrace it. What truths lay hidden in the shadows? Would she find Emily, or lose herself forever? Laura fought as the shadows clawed at her determination. Each whisper echoed through her mind, taunting her with long-forgotten fears. Memories of past failures flickered like rogue flames, missed opportunities, lost friendships, and the nagging fear of being a bad mother. She steeled herself against the constant barrage. With each step forward, she focused on Emily, the warmth of her child overshadowing the bitter cold around her. I'm coming! Her voice trembled but held tight, a lifeline she cast into the depths. Suddenly, a guttural roar erupted, shaking her to the core. The shadows writhed, and she felt them tighten around her like chains. You're too weak. You will never leave. They hissed, their voices twisting, merging into a cacophony that pounded against her mind. Sucking in a breath that tasted like ash, Laura remembered the warmth of Emily's laughter, the way her little fingers wrapped around hers, innocent and trusting. I'm not leaving her. In that instant, something shifted. The flickering light grew stronger, pulsing like a heartbeat. Mom! Don't lose hope. The light refracted through the darkness, illuminating symbols, scratched runes of despair mingled with images of love. Visions of Emily, growing and foraging through both youthful pain and joy, danced in her mind. Each recollection only fortified the resolve roaring within her. Come to me, Emily! Laura shouted, surging forward. The shadows screamed, swarming her, prickling her skin like ice. But she pressed on, pushing through the suffocating pressure, determined to reach the glowing outline of her daughter. A presence loomed closer now, dark and insidious, an embodiment of all her fears, taking shape behind the swirling shadows. A twisted figure, its eyes empty voids radiating malice. You will regret this, Laura. It spoke, each word laced with venom, curling around her throat. I'll never regret fighting for my child. Laura replied, her voice a dagger of defiance slicing through the gloom. She advanced, her will igniting the light further. The creature reached for her, its cold fingers brushing against her cheek. For a moment, a wave of hopelessness washed over her, a horrifying whisper of all the suffering she had endured, all the irrational fears that clawed at her confidence. You will become like us, lost forever. Pain lanced through her heart, a sharp reminder of the past creeping in. But as it coiled tighter, something inside Laura broke loose, a fierce instinct, a mother's love that swelled to life like an unstoppable tide. I am not yours! She screamed, pushing against the entity. A blinding light erupted, sending tendrils of shadow reeling back, shrieking in fury. The illumination revealed a delicate ribbon of hope that undulated toward Emily's flickering form. Mom! Come on! Tears streamed down Laura's face, fueled by anguish and determination. This was more than just a battle against darkness. It was a chance for redemption. A chance to reach Emily, to break free from the clutches of despair. As she sprinted toward the light, the shadows howled in protest, swirling into a tempest. She felt the ground shift beneath her feet, the very fabric of reality threatening to split. Then, just as her fingers grazed the light encircling Emily, everything stopped. The world held its breath as silence enveloped them. In that eerie moment of stillness, a single question reverberated within. What if breaking through meant facing the ultimate truth? The shadows shuddered with anticipation, waiting for her choice. Would this leap save her daughter, or unleash horrors yet unseen? Laura's fingers brushed against the light, warmth cascading over her. The moment stood still, a heartbeat lingering in the void. Around her, shadows twisted and shuddered, whispering insidious doubts, questions of her worthiness, her decisions. Will your love truly overcome? They had gone, their coldness seeping into her bones. You've already failed her once. No! Laura yelled, conviction ringing through her chest. I won't let you take her. Power surged through her, fueled by every moment she had fought to protect her daughter. Memories of laughter, of silly dances in the living room, and quiet bedtime stories bubbled to the surface. The warmth of Emily's smile ignited a fire that pushed back against the encroaching darkness. Mom! Emily cried again, her small voice sounding so fragile, yet layered with hope. Please don't let go. Laura's heart shattered at the plea. She wouldn't just save her daughter, she would reclaim what they had both lost: innocence, joy, safety. With a fierce cry of courage, she dove toward the light, feeling it expand, bright and invigorating, wrapping around her like a powerful embrace. The shadows recoiled, shrieking in a chorus of agony as the light surged. It cut through their malevolence, illuminating their twisted forms, revealing their true natures, lost souls caught in a web of despair. They were not just monsters, they were echoes of lives poorly lived, unfulfilled, yearning for release. Emily! She shouted again, reaching deeper into the brilliance. With her next step, she seemed to cross not just distance, but the boundary of fear itself. She felt Emily's warmth grow closer, the bonds of love pulling her forward. As their hands finally met, the energy surged between them, a jarring bolt that sent vibrations coursing through the air. Together! Laura urged, her voice steady and full of unwavering love. We can do this together. I'm scared, Emily confessed, tears brimming in her eyes, but she gripped her mother's hand tighter, drawing strength from Laura's resolve. Feel my love, Laura whispered, squeezing her daughter's small hand. It's stronger than any shadow. We can break free. In an instant, the darkness writhed, a tempest of sound and fury. But Laura pushed against the fear that threatened to swallow them whole. They didn't just have love, they had each other. A flicker of light ignited within her, the kind of unyielding hope that could shatter anything, even the deepest despair. As they began to move, stepping backward together, the light expanded. It swallowed the shadows, blasts of brilliance bursting forth as more memories surfaced, Emily smiling in her first dance recital, her wobbly first bike ride, bedtime hugs that melted into stories. Each instance of joy a strength to fuel their escape not just out of darkness, but toward everything they had once cherished. Keep going, Laura urged, feeling the tremors of the void shake beneath them. The entities howled, their cries growing desperate, clawing at the barrier between them and the powerful love radiating from mother and child. Then, with a final act of sheer necessity, Laura and Emily surmounted the haze of darkness, breaking through the shadows as the light enveloped them in a protective cocoon. The darkness quaked and howled, swirling violently as it shattered like glass, leaving only an eerie silence behind. They landed in a world reborn, bright and clear. Raindrops glimmered like diamonds on grass that had never felt the weight of despair. They breathed in the fresh air, soaking in the light. Did we do it? Emily asked, her voice still trembling but filled with wonder. I think we did, Laura replied, her voice full of disbelief and relief. She knelt to hold Emily tight, heart in her throat, fear of losing her still echoing gently. As they embraced, the fading remnants of the storm and shadows settled into whispers around them, reminders of the monsters they had conquered, a testimony of their strength and bond. Millstone, once dripping with sinister secrets, now felt alive with possibility. "Let us go home," Laura whispered, a soft smile breaking through the aftermath of terror. "We're safe now." In that sweet moment, the world was still, and the weight they carried lightened. Side by side, mother and daughter stepped forward, leaving behind the dark. They were not only survivors of horrors that had forged them anew. They had faced the darkness and emerged into the light, knowing that their love would always guide them through even the darkest nights. Now, dear friends, if you want to witness more stories that spark this kind of hope and courage, you need to hit that subscribe button immediately. Don't miss the next exclusive tale. Every click matters. Smash that like button now to tell the algorithm you can't get enough of these gripping stories. I want to hear from you. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories. What did you think of Laura and Emily's escape? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. Only true fans understand how vital your support is for this channel. Let's keep the stories coming.